Yes. And I've made like 30 video responses to this. Seriously. Like I spent the weekend saying, oh, because you're not the only person I asked kind of like where do things start like for video games. And it's super complicated in one way, right? Because it's a whole company building and there's all this other stuff and they're all intertwined. Like who you hire is what you make and what you're making is because who you hired and what's happening in the investment scene at the time that's inflating, like, it's everything. But everything always has this initial thought, right? Like, hey, I know I want to make 4-player co-op. I like those kind of games. I want to make another one. For me, it's late 60s, early 70s sci-fi, after Flash Gordon, before Star Wars, is super an interesting space because it's so weird and like highfalutin arty, but yet just strange and weird that I really like it. But one thing as you do this that you learn is always good is the ability then to step back and go, really? Because once you get grounded, once you get anchored into an idea, once you get like, oh, this is our starting point, this then becomes the starting point, and you have a bunch of assumptions baked in that you don't ever really reassess, right? So this was a question actually. Me and Gabe got in an argument over with once of that I think everything's a little random at the start. There's something out of somewhere. You see something that becomes this. Now, some games and some companies, and you see this in mobile a lot, where they kind of analyze the market and then they build this, and you get this really generic kind of just junk that's uninspired, right? Like the mobile market, that I say that it was done in mobile games doesn't surprise you, right? And you see this some in non-mobile games as well, but even then, there's a lot of choices that are essentially random. And that's why you should always revisit them, right? There was a start of a game at Valve, I'll just say, where we were going to base it in Cuba because people really liked a lot of these kind of assets that they were pulling out of Cuba. Someone had visited. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, what? No, that doesn't make any sense, right? And like you have to go back and you have to revisit it and you have to rethink it, right? So no, for me, I thought, well, sci-fi and all of that I wanted to embrace. And so then I went to those kind of things that I saw of like from Logan's Run kind of look to it, to kind of some of the spaceships of 2001 Space Odyssey and all of that. But what I did not go back and step and look at and go, when you live in those spaces, for me, those are second nature. And there's a lot of built-in things that I don't have to explain to me, but to have to be explained to other people. So if I tell you it's a zombie apocalypse and the first thing you do is you wake up and you're in a shack and you open the door and you're in a city and you hear zombies, you know the entire world. You know everything about it. I don't need to explain anything to you. I don't need to explain that you need to drink water, you need to eat food, you need to be so like nothing. It's all built in for free. But if I'm in sci-fi, I'm in outer space, if I'm in spaceships, there's a whole bunch of stuff all of a sudden I've got to explain. And I didn't appreciate that. I didn't appreciate that. For me, this was the same as this. The 2001 Space Odyssey was the same as zombie movies because in my brain, I associate the two very similarly. But other people do not. And one of the things of when you're the CEO is you don't get people to step back and question that starting point that much. And there's a little bit, but not much. And so I tried to do it myself, and I tried to revisit and look at that every so often, and we made some adjustments around that, and some of that really is reflected in it. But it still is. You're going to base it on those starting points. You're going to base it on those assumptions. And so it's worth really kind of digging in and thinking about that because you're going to anchor to it. And once you get anchored to it, man, you'll just go down so many rabbit holes of stupid ideas because it's anchored, and then you're just like, well, wait, why are we starting here? Why is this a given? Like, I always question that. Why is this a given? Why can't we walk back from this? Why can't we explore something different? Because you'll really open up what you can do, and you'll really start realizing, like, I think it's when someone sculpts a piece of marble, they'll be like, oh, the marble tells you what to sculpt. There's a point where the game tells you what to make and what you should be making and how you should be making it and what you should be adjusting to bring out what's working. And you got to listen to that. And sometimes it may be resetting a big assumption. Like we were too far in game-wise, art-wise, and world-wide to get off the idea that you were going to be on this ship. But I would have helped us maybe, right? And so like those are things I think about, right? And that's always a really hard thing is, yeah, it's going to start from someplace random, but then revisit that random choice because understand that it was a bit random. Yeah, again, this is something people will argue about because they'll say that no, you can manufacture your way to that original thought. But even like you just waking up and deciding you're going to make art that day is somewhat random. That I say random, but I would say out of your deliberate control and in your nature / environment that it comes from, right? So yeah, I don't know. And I am going to make those videos about starting, I decided. But I'm going to split them in two. There's going to be a business one and a design one because I think starting design is interesting of a lot of choices you have to make. And starting business is interesting, a lot of choices. The truth is they're both layer on top of each other, and building Stray Bombay was really hard because of that and starting from zero. You know, I don't know.